Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is David Huxley from icare's mobile engagement team. Coming to you from the far north coast of New South Wales, where I live. I'm on Bundjalung country, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders, people, and the ancestors of this beautiful country where I am based. I'd also like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians on the various lands on which we all work today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. During today's webinar, Workers' Compensation Savings and Incentives to Support Small Business, we will discuss a number of discounts, benefits, and incentives that are available to support not only New South Wales small business, but their workers as well. But before we do, I just need to cover off on a little bit of housekeeping. With over 1,000 registrations for today's webinar, everyone's camera and mic are disabled, so there'll be no interruptions. And the chat box, whilst it is open right now, will be closed in a moment until the end of the session, at which point we'll open it up for some feedback. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to answer any questions from the audience with such large numbers, and it can be really difficult to respond to specific questions. And we want to keep this session on track, and we have a lot to cover. The idea of these sessions is that they're short and sharp and on point and probably don't go over 30-minute time frame, but today we might go a minute or two over, but that's okay. Look, the final bit of housekeeping is that this session is being recorded and will be made available on our webpage in due course, probably 2 to 3 weeks' time. And it will be made available in a number of different languages as well. And for any brokers attending, we will provide you with a code to claim your CPD points on the final slide right at the end of the session. Now, I'd like to introduce my guest for today's webinar. And today it's my colleague and small employer subject matter expert, Mr. Adam O'Leary. How are things down in the Shire today, mate?
Good morning, Hux, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's really nice down here today, Hux. It's a bit overcast, certainly not the tropical conditions that you'd be experiencing in Bundjalung country, but, it's all right.
No, well, it's actually not that tropical. It's 19 degrees and raining, so it's pretty cool, to be honest.
It's tropical.
You're doing well. You're doing well. All right, well, let's kick things off. And I thought, Adam, maybe the best way to start the session is to look at some of the key statistics about small business in the New South Wales scheme and look at who exactly is a small business by definition. This might just set the scene in terms of what's happening, and then we can discuss what this means and what incentives are available to small businesses. Now, Adam, can you take us through some of the high-level stats, which I'll put on the screen for you now? There you go, which provide us with a bit of an overview of the small business landscape in New South Wales.
Sure, Hux. Thank you. And as you said, this is high-level stats, and it's just I love my stats. They tell a good story, and this gives you some idea in regard to how small business fits into the scheme overall. So if we run along the top stats initially, the little state maps that you see there, the little dark blue state maps represent the scheme as a whole. So if we look at the first one, we can see there's 3.6 million workers covered within our scheme, within the New South Wales icare scheme. 1.6 million are small business related workers. We then got 315,000 policies that are small business out of the 338,000 for the scheme. So you can see the vast majority of policies, or 93%, is small business policy. There's 62,000 claims annually, and of that 62,000, 17,000 are small business claims, all related to small business customers. And of that, 18% are medical only. You can see the state average there is 30% medical only. When we talk medical only, we're talking about those claims that do not have wage loss component to it. This stat is a little bit of a worry for me because that number should be higher, that 18% should be higher. And what it tells me is it's likely that a lot of the medical only claims just aren't being reported. They're being managed by the customers. And there could be out-of-pocket expense in that regard that you could be saving because those out-of-pocket expenses for medical treatment, rehab, all the other treatments are not impacting on you when it comes to your premium. And then finally, it just tells us about total cost to the scheme. That's $2.7 billion annually. And out of that, $1 billion is related to small business. So you can see small business equates to about a quarter of the claims that are generated per year, but it's about 40% of the cost that is generated.
Big numbers in there. So look, small business, as you say, does represent the vast majority, certainly of policies, but a big chunk of the claims that we're experiencing as well. So now that we've had a high level view, let's discuss some specific small business claims information and look at the impact that they're having. And I'll just change the slide for you. There we go.
So this is a bit more of a deeper dive, and this gives you a few more stats, and I'll tell you about the key message and the tip in a moment. But if you work down the left-hand side of the page, the claims frequency rate is something that we look at, and it's based on a ratio. So claims per 1,000 employees. And you can see there's two numbers there. There's the small business number, which equates to 13 claims per 1,000 employees on average. And the New South Wales state average is 17 claims per 1,000 employees. When we talk again about the New South Wales average, that's inclusive of everyone. Small business, large business, everyone that has a policy within our scheme.
Right.
Small business is only specific to small business. So what that shows us, that first stat, is that it's 24% less claims when it comes to claims frequency are generated with small business. The biggest stats that we're looking at here are the average days off. So if you look there, the average days off for small business claims is 109 days. The average days for the scheme is 78 days. So there's a 31-day difference there, which is quite significant. And then when you look at the average cost of claims, you can see that it's small business costs around $49,000 per claim on average again, and the state average is 35. So again, you've got an increase of about $14,000. But I think that the message that we really have to look at on this slide and the graphs here is those claims that are reported within 5 days versus those reported outside of 5 days. So the New South Wales, the legislation states that we should be reporting all claims within 48 hours. And there's an incentive in place via icare that if you report a claim within 5 days, you will not suffer from an excess payment or need to pay an excess payment, which is equivalent of around 1 week's wages. And so what we've done here, we've broken down the stat to show the statistics of those claims reported within 5 days and outside of 5 days. So initially, if we look at the outside of 5 days, you can see the average days off is 143 days for all the claims reported outside of 5 days. And the average cost is $58,000. And you can see the difference there just in those averages we just spoke about a moment ago are significantly higher. But the tip here is if you do report your claim within 5 days, straight away we've seen that comparison of reporting before and after 5 days, you get a 60-day saving in time lost. That is significant. That's equivalent to, if you're looking at 20 days, working days per month, that's 3 months that you're saving. $16,000 cheaper, and it saves you from paying in excess.
Fantastic.
So,
all right.
Well, so Hux, I've now gone through some of the stats on small business. Are you able to talk through how small business employees' premiums are calculated and explain the impact a claim can have, but also share some detail about some of the discounts that can be obtained?
Yeah, and I'll spend a little bit of time on this just so everyone's pretty clear. So first of all, I'll just explain there's two categories of employers in the New South Wales scheme. There's a small employer whose average performance premium is equal to or below $30,000. And then we have experience rated employers whose premium is above that $30,000 figure or threshold that we talk about. Now, today we're mainly talking about small employers, those who are equal to or below. And I'll tell you how we get to that $30,000 figure in a moment. So I thought we could also talk through a basic scenario or an example of a small employer in a moment. And we'll look at the premium calculation as well as the impact of a workplace injury on the business. I'll also share how to access a couple of incentives along the way at different stages of the policy and or claim cycle. So on the screen here, I've just brought up, we have Rick. This is Rick. Rick owns a restaurant and employs 15 staff. And the amount of wages he pays is currently about $1 million per year. Now, to get Rick's average performance premium, which I referenced a moment ago, you simply multiply the wages of $1 million against the industry rate. The industry rate, or WIC rates, which is a short abbreviation for workers' compensation industry classification, but we'll just call them WIC. It's a lot easier. The current rate for a restaurant in New South Wales is 2%, and that's regardless of where they're based or the size of the restaurant. So to get RIC's average performance premium, it's the $1 million or multiplied by 2%, gives you $20,000. So $20,000 is RIC's average performance premium, excluding any other incentives, discounts, or levies. Now, I thought this might be a good opportunity just to explain how RIC could be entitled to a couple of those discounts off the premium to start with. The first one is the pay in full discount, which is equal to 5%, and it should be it's on the screen there. And Rick can obtain this 5% if he pays his full premium within 30 days of the invoice being issued. Pretty simple, really. Of course, he can choose to pay his installments. He can choose to pay his premium by installments and their monthly installments as his premium is over $1,000, and that can be done at no additional charge to Rick. I'm just going to add just a little box on the right-hand side there that there's a bit of a change coming on the 1st of January 2024, is that icare will no longer be issuing checks for any refunds. So we will be still issuing refunds, of course, but via EFT. So please provide your bank details, and you can do that if you haven't already by calling that number in red on the screen, 134422, which is a really important number to have noted down because that's the number you can call if you have any policy or premium related inquiries. Now I'm going to go on to the next little incentive on the next slide here, Adam. Okay, so back to Rick. Now Rick hasn't had any workplace injuries since he opened his business, his restaurant, approximately 5 years ago, which brings us to the second discount Rick might receive, the Safe Employer Reward, which is equivalent or equal to 7.5% discount off his average performance premium. Now remember that was $20,000, so therefore 7.5% of $20,000 is $1,500, which is a decent amount of coin for Rick, which he could use to put back into his business. Now, this is a brand new discount that was introduced from 30 June this year. So as your policy comes due, you should see this on your paperwork throughout the year. It's kind of like a no-claim bonus for employees who have good recent claims performance. And I'll talk through the criteria just quickly for small employers to qualify, which is on the slide. So you need at least 3 years worth of policy history, and Rick does because he's got 5 years. He's been around for about 5 years. Have had no catastrophic claims in the previous 3 years. A catastrophic claim is like a fatality claim, which are obviously very terrible indeed, and had no weekly benefit claim in the previous 36 months or 3 years prior to renewal. A weekly benefit claim is a claim where we've had to pay some wages to a worker who's off work as they're unable to work due to their injury. And this isn't the case for Rick because he's had no claims at all. So the idea with the Safe Employer Award is to really not only reward employers for good performance, but also to encourage them to invest in safety to help prevent injuries in the workplace into the future. And as we talk through a scenario in a moment, we'll share a simple example where Rick could perhaps invest in some safety equipment. Now, in addition, as Rick is a small employer, he would not experience any other direct claims impacting his premium, although he could lose his Safe Employer Award if he did have a claim where a worker was did require some paid time away from the workplace. And look, over time, in my experience, I've had so many small employers tell me that they haven't reported claims through a fear of a fine or a huge premium hike, which isn't the case at all. And it can result in several consequences, like it's against the legislation. You are required as an employer to report claims when they occur, to report injuries when they occur in the workplace. The worker may not get the medical treatment as soon as they possibly could, and the injury could actually get worse. They may have to pay for the medical treatment themselves, so they might be out of pocket where they shouldn't be. They may have to use sick or annual leave when, again, they shouldn't have to. Can result in a breakdown in the relationship between the worker and the employer, and could result in cultural issues if other staff are required to do a little bit more to cover an employee who may be away, or perhaps they witnessed the accident in the first place. Look, with any workplace accidents, Adam, and injuries, there can be other indirect impacts or costs to a business, including loss of productivity, the time, the effort, and resources to replace staff, and potentially business reputational risks. Look, one final point about premiums is that it's really important to note that every employer indirectly impacts their overall WIC or industry rate that is charged for their own industry based on their own performance. So really, if enough employees in a single industry perform well over a period of time, then would impact the overall rate that is charged. Now, I've done a lot of talking, Adam. So a moment ago, I referenced the Safe Employer Award, which could be used to invest in safety. But I know there's another rebate, which you're going to talk about now, which is available to small employers and is offered through SafeWork New South Wales. Do you want to talk us through that and tell us what it's all about? And I'll bring up the slide for you. There we are.
Okay, thanks, Hux. Yeah, this is the Safe Work Safety Rebate for small employers. And it's actually been around for some time, but it's been well underutilized and probably due to the fact that not many people are aware of it. Ultimately, it's a great program that offers up to $1,000 toward the cost of your workplace health and safety items. It's all you really need to do is invest in any of the eligible items, and there's some examples there at the bottom of the screen in the eligibility point 3 there, where it gives you some idea in regard to what type of items that you could purchase, but there's so many, there's hundreds of items there, but you're looking at things like anti-slip protection, signage, lifting equipment. There's so much stuff that you could look at, and ultimately you invest in it, you get reimbursed for it. There is some criteria that you need to cover off on. A really important piece here to note is, as per Hux's comments just mentioned that he mentioned a moment ago around the icare definition of a small business being an average performance premium or a premium of less than $30,000. The criteria here is more around staff numbers. So if you're a small business, if you have less than 50 full-time employees, or equivalent for the program. So you can get a lot of the detail. There's the QR code and there's a link there. So have a look at the items that are available, and hopefully it's giving you $1,000 back in your pocket to make your workplace safer for not only yourself but for your staff also.
Yeah, no, there's certainly a lot of eligible items on there that businesses could purchase, and we'll get into one in a moment. But first of all, let's get back to Rick's restaurant and our scenario. Look, I'm afraid to say, Adam, that one of Rick's employees, Tess, actually slipped on a wet floor and injures her knee in this instance. And look, at first it's thought that the injury isn't too bad, and Tess goes home from work just to rest up as you would. Now, Rick isn't too sure what to do, as Tess seemed okay at the time. Now, Adam, as an employer who has not experienced any injuries in their workplace previously, what should Rick be doing first?
Okay, Hux, well, you've just brought up the slide which actually shows the Recover at Work plan. We'll touch on that in a minute.
Yep.
But when it comes to reporting claims, the general rule of thumb is that if a worker needs medical support, a GP visit, or any form of treatment, you should report the claim with the claim service provider within 48 hours as per legislation, and within 5 days to icare or the claim service provider to make sure that you avoid the potential of excess payments. If you're unsure about reporting as you've applied first aid on site, you have to think that if there is the potential that a claim could inflame or an injury become infected at a later date, such as a dirty laceration, you should register the claim as a notification only. So there's no payments being made on that claim. It's more just registering it just in case something was to happen in the future. And by registering this type of claim, your claim service provider can react quickly with any treatment or return to work planning requirements. And again, you won't be charged any excess if it was initially reported within that 5-day period. And when we talk about the reporting timeframes, it's the date that you've become aware of the injury. It's not the date of injury, it's the date that you've become aware or you've been notified of that injury. And for more significant claims requiring time off, as I previously mentioned, the sooner these claims are reported, the sooner appropriate treatment and return to work planning can take place. And getting back to this slide, this is a 3-page Zero Recover at Work template. We do reference it at many of our events that we do across our state. And it's a simple structure. It's really easy to complete. And all the research and other evidence actually shows that having a written return to work plan in place not only spells out the obligations for all the various parties who are involved in the return to work, but it also does support a much quicker return to work and minimises lost productivity within your organisations. And if you're not confident or have time to manage your return to work plan, particularly for more complex matters, request the support of a rehabilitation provider via your claim service provider, as this is a free service offering and has no impact on your premium. We'll provide you with a checklist also on what you can do if you've not had experience with claims before. And it's a really simple step-by-step guide. And registering claims is really easy and can be done via visiting the icare Small Business Hub. And we'll touch on that shortly, Hux, won't we?
Okay. Yeah, we will, absolutely. Look, just a reminder to the audience that we're going to provide everyone with a link or links to all the different incentives and resources that we're referring to today. Some have QR codes on the screen, which you can access, but please hold off from doing that for now because we're still going through the webinar. But you will also get a copy of the slide pack on an email, and that should probably go out later today or tomorrow. Now, Adam, I've been thinking about our example, the scenario with Rick and Tess, and if Rick had actually accessed the Safe Work rebate that he may have been entitled to, or maybe used the Safe Employer reward to purchase some non-slip mats in his kitchen, the injury may or may not have occurred. Now, with regards to Tess, after a visit to her GP and a number of scans on her knee, Tess sees a specialist and finds out she requires knee surgery. They must stay off her feet, for an extended period of time while she recovers. Now, Tess is a key member of staff at Rick's restaurant, and Rick needs chefs who can stand up for long periods. And it's a busy time of year. It's coming into summer, so he needs some staff on the ground all the time. So this brings us to the next incentive, which Rick could perhaps access to support in solving this new challenge, which I've just bring up on the screen now, the Recover at Work Assist, which is an incentive offered by the State Insurance Regulatory Authority, or CIRA. The incentive is designed and available for employers who may be struggling to provide suitable or like duties to their worker due to the injury or due to the type of duties that are available in the workplace, just not suitable for the injured worker, which is the case here again for Tess and Rick. So Adam, can you explain how it works and how employers can actually qualify for this?
Yeah, sure, Huck. So this is another program that's actually been available for quite a while, but again, underutilized. And it's an entitlement that's there, or an incentive that's there for small business specific. And I think that we've got to start by acknowledging that it can be really challenging for small business to identify and then offer suitable duties, and hence the reason for this program. It's also important to note that small business does not have dedicated resources that focus on these type return to work activities like many large businesses do have. And so the program, or this CIRA initiative, promotes Recover at Work. Pretty simply put, Recover at Work is also recognised as a form of treatment. And this program helps small business overcome any financial hardship in providing these, in identifying ways and providing these suitable duties. Again, there is some eligibility criteria as noted in the slide there, but it does, however, it works with small business that they can, sorry, let me start again. It works is that the small business employer can receive an assistance payment of up to $400 per week for a combined total of 6 weeks. It's important to note that you need to use the program within the first 26 weeks or so from the date of injury in this regard. So it's knowing when the date of injury was and when you can use it. And touching on the last 3 eligibility points on this slide, it's essentially stating that you are able to utilise your injured work to perform some form of suitable duties in line with their certificate of capacity. And if you haven't seen a certificate of capacity, it's the certificate that's issued by your general practitioner following the initial consultation that a worker might have following the injury. However, it's costing you. So if you're able to provide those suitable duties and it's still costing you to achieve the pre-injury duty outcomes for that specific role, this is where this incentive comes into play. I would, however, propose that you gain the assistance of your claim service provider or rehabilitation provider in accessing the program and maximising its benefits. And again, it's at no cost to you. So it's something that I really encourage all small business to look into via consultation with your claim service provider. So Hux, I know Rick's Restaurant would actually qualify as he employs 15 staff and pays less than $30,000 in premium. He just needs to meet some of that other criteria.
Yeah, it certainly meets the first two. So that's great. It's good for Rick and Tess. Certainly a great little initiative there. So we'll just move on now. Adam, I know the impact mental health has been having on workplaces, on workers, but also businesses as well. And businesses should not be ignoring some of the challenges around mental health, but we know that this can be a very difficult topic to tackle, especially for small employers who probably don't have the experience to do so. So, Adam, I know there is a tool available to help employers who may be struggling. And do you want to talk us through that while I'll bring it up for you?
Yeah, Hux. So as you mentioned, this is moving into the wellness and mental health topic for business, and sharing some more stats that we didn't necessarily cover off on earlier. Psychological injuries amount to only around 5% of injuries in the small business world. However, take on average 307 days off work and cost an average of $100,000. So again, when you consider those initial stats, really, really big numbers, particularly that 307 days off work. And I acknowledge, or we acknowledge, that we continue to learn more and more each day about mental health, but also acknowledge that these numbers are just way too high and it's not sustainable for us to keep operating with these numbers. Also understanding that mental health claims are the fastest growing claim type within the scheme, hence why we need to do more as a collective in the mental health space. But there are many organisations that have programs like the Employer Assistance Program, and that is what this is essentially about. Whilst large business may have these services within their business, this is the Steer initiative for small business, and it's called the Here to Talk service. And so it's funded by CERA and delivered by NEMI National. Any workers or employers that may be struggling with mental health or their own well-being can talk to someone who has lived experience with their own mental health. And it's a free service that operates between 12 and 7 p.m. Friday. Again, there's a QR code there for people to get access to greater information on this program. But why don't we let the listeners know about a recent example where this service was used, Hux, after a terrible accident?
Yeah, no, there was a terrible accident where I heard about where a worker lost a limb, had to get a limb amputated there, and as a result, they started to suffer. The mental health started to suffer. I mean, as if the physical injury isn't bad enough. So, we were able to advise the worker and the employer of this service, and to assist in, to support the workers' deteriorating mental health. So, and it actually was a really great. What I heard was a really great support service for that particular worker who'd been through a fair bit already with the physical injury. So, great resource to get involved in. So, look, speaking of resources, we've covered a lot here, and I know that we've developed a specific resource or tool for small businesses in New South Wales, a small business hub, which is kind of like a one-stop shop for small employers. So you've been involved in the small business hub probably from the inception, Adam, and just want to quickly explain to the audience about the resources and tools that are available on the hub.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hux. Yeah, I have been involved with this one since the inception, and you're exactly right in saying it's a one-stop shop. And it was created for that reason, for one location where you can get everything from a small business perspective. So if you get the opportunity, and please take the time to have a look at this, but it's again, you can access it via the either the link or the QR code there. But it provides you with all your premium information that I know that Hux has touched on initially throughout this session. Your claims information, it gives you guidance material as well as the opportunity to actually register or record claims throughout this link. Educational events, so that's the mobile engagement team. A lot of what we are doing right now and some of our regional face-to-face forums that we'll be hosting over the coming weeks, months, and year. And also, there's lots of prevention resources available. There's one that's actually brand new on the Small Business Hub. It's a decision aid tool, and it's actually there to ask some simple questions of an employer around safety within your workplace, and then it will provide you with some matching type programs that would suit the responses that you provided. So as I said, get on, have a look, and hopefully this is the one-stop shop for you. It's the only place you should need to go for anything and everything workers' compensation.
Well, we've covered a lot today in a short amount of time, and we're nearly out of time. But what we might do now, Adam, is I'll get you to just summarise a lot of the top savings and incentives that are available that we've discussed, which are now on the screen here for you to talk about.
Okay, Hux, thank you. Yeah, we are a minute over, so I'll go through it really quickly. You did touch on the 5% discount if you pay your premium in full or ahead of time up front. The reporting claims within 5 days, really, really important. So not only is it saving you time when it comes to return to work, as in minimising lost productivity, but it's also that cost component and the excess amounts that you'll avoid if you do report claims early within 5 days. The EFT details, if you haven't provided them, please provide them, because there is a directive that as of 2024, we're not meant to be issuing checks. So if there are any refunds or anything owing, we can transfer that via EFT. There's the $1,000 Safe Work rebate. Please get onto it. Please use it. It's there. It's free. It's going to give you make your workplace a safer workplace. The Recover at Work plan. Have a look at it. Use it. Make sure that if you do, you probably should be working with a rehabilitation provider. There's the CIRA Work Assist program. Again, up to $2,400 is available to you to provide suitable duties to your workers. The Here to Talk program, again, sponsored by CIRA, fantastic resource and is free to you all. And then the Small Business Hub, as I said, please get on, have a look, and use that as your one-stop shop for workers' compensation.
Fantastic, and I think everything we've spoken about is free or available to
It's all free
today. So it's all good stuff, and that's what we like: free initiatives to support small businesses. So Adam, that almost brings us to the end. Now, before everyone goes, we've opened up the chat, and we might just pop up a quick poll because we want to obtain your feedback about what you thought of the session, if you found it worthwhile. If we try to keep it short and sharp and on point, I'll just explain the scale. If you thought it was worthwhile and you got something out of it, you'd give it a 4 or a 5. If it was so-so, you'd probably give it a 3. If it was a waste of time, you'd give it a 1 or a 2. But I'll also ask if anyone wants to pop any feedback into the chat box there. We'll get some information about what you thought of the session, any comments, or any future suggestions for some webinars that we could be holding, because we're always looking for new ideas and we want to support employers in the things they're interested in. I'll just add for those brokers on the call, there is the CPD code on the top of the screen. But any brokers who've registered are also going to get a quick survey they're going to need to respond to just to get entitled to their full CPD point. Now, before we go, Adam referenced we travel around the state doing face-to-face forums, and you've actually got 4 events that are coming up in the next 2 weeks. We're going to be very busy in the next fortnight, Adam. Next week, we'll be in Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, running a mental health forum. So if you're in that area, please register. We'll send you a link to register off our webpage. But also in the first week in November, we'll be in Bankstown and Blacktown delivering workers' compensation foundation sessions. It's a mouthful. So again, you'll get the link to register for that as well. Or you can use the QR code that's on the screen there right now. So look, it's been a pleasure as always, Adam. Thank you for joining me again today. And thanks for hosting this session. I hope it's been valuable to those who have joined us. Please put your comments in the chat box, and I might pop the music back on. And I'll see you in Port Macquarie next week, Adam. Look forward to it.
Look forward, Hux. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Please pop in any comments or questions, or comments or future suggestions. That'd be fantastic. And I'll pop on a little bit of music for everyone here. So let's have a go.
Thanks, Ux, and thank you
Thank-
all.
Thanks, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you soon face to face at an event near you. Have a good day, guys.